That's what she said. Jewish. The priest showed up like it was for me, and I was last rites. I just remember saying to myself, well, I guess I'll take all the help I can get right now. While this was happening, my hospice nurse took it upon himself to call my dad.
I said, you better come. He's dying. I said, I can't come. There's a restraining order against me. He says, we got that taken care of. Just come.
Jake heard his dad enter the house with police escorts to say goodbye to him. Jake didn't know exactly why the cops needed to accompany his father, but he assumed that it was the result of the fight on Chinese New Year.
They gave me only a few minutes.
It was pretty tragic. The cops kind of like rushing this.
This is like the first
My
time I've
dad's
used a
like
box
crying,
guy in ages.
coming close to me, and my wife is muttering words, nasty things like, well, he's like crying to me. And
About your dad?
yeah, and whispering in my ear like, it's okay, my boy, we're gonna go see your mom, it's okay. It was like very heavy, sad.
A heated conversation broke out between the family members in the room. Jake's dad, Daron, was escorted out of the house.
I'm just like, guys, everyone, like, you can all be sad or like angry or like whatever, but just stop giving each other shit. As all this bickering is going on, I experienced this very strange experience, but I believe this was the closest you can come to death. In fact, I believe this, what I experienced, might be death. I'm looking at the ceiling. It was like this hum of a fluorescent light started dulling out the bickering. It was getting harder to hear that, and simultaneously my pain began to dissipate. I'm getting this kind of calm, and the hum is getting louder, and their voices are now silent. They're like on mute, and I'm no longer in pain, and I'm saying to myself, wow, this must be death. I have enough time to start thinking about my mom on hospice, and I knew she was in pain, and it gave me comfort to know, I don't know, but I felt like I knew that maybe her pain was non-existent at the end. I didn't want to die, but I wasn't scared of it either. I actually felt calm and at peace. You know when you're watching an old school cartoon, the picture kind of gets close and it's like this black surrounds it? It was like that, slowly. It was like losing more and more and more, and now I'm just seeing lit. And then like lights out. And I had enough time to say, I just died. And I was asleep. And then I woke up and I was in horrible pain. And I said, oh, fuck.
Still here.
Still here. So in my brain, it was nothingness until I woke up. And I have no idea how many hours went by.
Remembering this traumatic event is taking a visible toll on Jake.
God, that near-death experience makes me like tear a little bit. Not cry, but you know.
It's just so crazy. I wonder like what happened on the other side. Who sent you back? Why were you sent back? Because it sounds like you did die.
Yeah. I mean, I would say my mom.
I certainly didn't think he would make the night, and he did. And he made a liar out of me.
further on, or maybe a couple months after that, there was an incident where he incidentally removed his trach, to which, he obviously shouldn't be here, but he started breathing on his own. By some miracle, no longer needed oxygen, so it was at that point that it's like, okay, is this guy really dying, or, we need to get him other sorts of help, what's going on here?
Mike stayed on Jake's case for a few more months, and he recalls that Ellen quickly moved back into recovery mode. Jake had survived so far, and she was determined to find a cure.
Let's cure him, let's get him better, and I think the stress started to take a toll. There was some days that she just wouldn't answer my calls, wouldn't answer the door, so at that point she was basically doing it alone.
The thing about hospice care is it's meant for the end of someone's life. But Jake kept on living. So, shortly after this near-death experience, his hospice care timed out. And having survived the 6 months of hospice, medical professionals were not quite sure what to do with him.
The plan was to have him go back to the emergency room, but didn't quite happen that way.
Jake remembers the day they came to take the medical equipment. He could feel hands on him, lifting him out of his hospice bed, placing him down onto a makeshift bed of pillows on the floor. His wife begged them not to take it, but it didn't matter. And so, for days, Jake lay there, on the floor of his father's home, trapped, listening as his wife unraveled. He had no way to move, no way to call for help, completely shut off from the world, his wife now being his sole means of survival. Thank you for listening to Blank. This podcast is hosted and produced by me, Corinne Vienne, alongside my co-creator and survivor, Jake Handel. Our original music is composed by the brilliant and talented Michael Margay. We're so grateful for your support. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating, reviewing, and sharing this story with others. For additional resources, updates, and behind-the-scenes content, visit our website, blankthepodcast.com. Blink will return with a new episode next Sunday.
Back your business with Energy Australia and get energy solutions from a dedicated team of experts. Search Energy Australia or call 1-800-709-510.
Sounds like, while the hospital staff struggled to reach her, Jake still did have occasional contact. But I guess occasional is the key word here.
So, I noticed Ellen, my wife, beginning to pull away. I didn't think of it as her pulling away, but I more noticed something strange or off. She had definitely not been visiting as much, which, I didn't blame her because, she was my only caregiver during hospice. Her choice, by the way, being the only one. She needs a break, or I'm viewing it that way. And I'm making these kind of huge gains in therapy in the scheme of things, but to me, they're still small in the scheme of things. But coming from where I came, everyone's like, it's pretty amazing what's happening here. I'm in PT, and they got me in this walking harness rolling cart machine, and they were trying to see if I could take a few steps with tons of support on either side, people moving my legs. And my wife and my mother-in-law walk in, and all of the therapists, people are like, oh my god, it's so exciting, look what your hospital is doing. I saw her face, I haven't been vertical in quite some time, and she just looked not happy at all. She looked a little disappointed. She was mad.
Tarot Explorations has pioneered small ship cruising for over 35 years, offering extraordinary experiences that blend authenticity with luxury. Embark on a polar expedition aboard Le Commandant Charcot, the world's only luxury icebreaker. Walk among emperor penguins in Antarctica's Weddell Sea. Meet the Inuit people of East Greenland. Witness the world's wonders like never before. Visit ponant.com or speak to your preferred travel agent today.
A few days after this, my wife and mother-in-law, I've had I'm getting beat up in therapy, I'm exhausted. They come in the room, and my wife's like, hi, honey, gives a kiss, and she's like, all right, Mom is gonna say a few things, I'll leave you guys alone. Leaves her. And my mother-in-law was like, oh, honey, I don't know how to say this. I don't know why I'm saying this. Ellen kind of needs a divorce. And I'm like, I just started I had this very weird scream, cry thing. That was the only thing verbally I could do. I could cry, I could scream, I could yell. But it sounded very strange. I was told from people at Spalding that I sounded like a wounded animal.
For the next 48 hours, Jake cried on and off in the hospital, refusing all medications, food, and therapy. The last year and a half had been absolute hell. But Jake had had Ellen. She somehow always knew what Jake needed in every moment. She'd lay next to him and paint a picture of their future, what they'd do together when he recovered, and the home that they would have, the family they would create. And for Jake, this hope was his lifeline, and Ellen was the love of his life. But then she was gone.
They thought that was the end for me. They thought I would never bounce back from that. I don't think they thought I would necessarily die, but they didn't think I'd continue recovering.
Jake did bounce back. On the third morning, when medical staff entered his room, he stuck out his tongue to accept his medication. He may have lost his wife, but that didn't mean he couldn't get her back. He was now more motivated than ever to recover fully and to prove to Ellen that the magical recovery they dreamed of was just around the corner.
I feel like we got very close very quickly because there was something about him and about his story that spoke to me, and that I thought, we've got to do something. He's got to get better. He can't live his life like this. I can't sleep at night if he's living his life like this. And so I was super involved. And was trying to think of any way to make things better. And then he was also really vulnerable and transparent in, I think, a very productive way. He was struggling. He was struggling with the fact that he had guilt, that it was his addiction that brought him here. He had an incredible amount of guilt about what he had done to Elle, his wife, and their relationship. He had an incredible amount of fear. Am I going to have to live my whole life like this, stuck in my body in this intense pain? Part of the therapy was communicating, and I'm not going to dictate what you want to communicate. You tell me, what do you want to communicate about? So he would ask me these questions, or we would have these conversations where he would talk to me about his addiction issues and the guilt that he had about that. And so I would say every conversation was kind of a deep conversation. I remember trying to lighten it up because Jake was a chef, and so I would say, Angela, why don't you just talk to me about cooking? I'm trying to become a better. What should I make for dinner tonight? And how would you do it? Chicken parm. How do I make chicken parm? Just things like that, where it would be that you teach me something. We would talk about that. We would talk a little bit about his life. I knew that he had lost his mom, but I didn't know the details, so we would talk about his history, that. And a lot of times it was the present. I'm in pain. I feel horrible. I've destroyed my marriage. I've destroyed my life. And so we would kind of have those conversations. And I would also defer to our neuropsychologist as well, who could have more kind of detailed counseling conversations as well. From the minute I met Jake in the hospital, to our relationship today, nothing has changed. He's exactly who he was. And I feel like he was able to do that because he was so authentically himself, even in like the worst moments of his life when he's in terrible pain, physical and mental, and scared and frustrated. And, you know, like I saw him at his worst moments, but he was still himself. So, and then I saw him at his best moments because there were times where this guy's sitting here, he's sweating and uncomfortable and in pain and can't move anything in his body, but he's still cracking jokes to me right now, like through a megabee. Like, what? Communication is so
Set a timer for 45 minutes.
So it's like in his case, in that situation,
Set
was
a
a
timer
limited
for
resource.
45 minutes.
So like what he chose to tell me, that says a lot about who you are, you know. So I appreciated his sense.
Set a timer for 45 minutes. Set a timer for 45 minutes.
Of humor, like he's a little sarcastic. He's a little dark sense of humor sometimes, but he's also like, here are some results from the web. Optimistic and hopeful, and he perseveres, and that all came out in these conversations.
Jake has told me that he feels that he's a very powerful manifester, and I agree. He's so driven and motivated, and he puts all of his effort into obtaining a goal that he visualizes for himself. In this moment, getting better for Ellen, despite their strained relationship, was all...
Fuck me, Dad. Hey Google, set a timer for 45 minutes. Alright then. Hey Google. What is with this phone? Hey Google, set a timer for 45 minutes. Your assistant, set a timer for 45 minutes. Hello. Oh my gosh. Set a